thank you so much, Dhruv, for doing this. Like I was saying, I have a, let's say I am not much of a media consumer. I don't consume a lot of content, but given that I do a podcast now, I have to go over what people say and what people think before I approach them. It's just generally better. And I've found for myself that I have a very eclectic taste. It depends. There is a lot of variation with respect to what I like and what I don't like. And I really found what you have to say very digestible. And given that even saying something like that to Dhruv Rathee will beget both a volume of compliments and a volume of criticism to me and to Dhruv, I will not shy from saying the fact that it's the precision and being concise and all of that is fine, but you're also very fair. Like you will stick to what you think very, very thoroughly. And I like that about you. What I also like about you is that you caught on to the problem, which is my problem with the world, very early on. So watching your interview with Ravish, I found out that you articulated the problem very well. It is almost like there is something in the room. Both Dhruv and Prakhar are present in the room. We are both looking at the same object, but the description of the object is so contrasted. It is like we are not looking at the same thing. So no political discussion, no social discussion will lead anywhere at all if Dhruv and Prakhar are not even looking at the same thing when they're talking, right? And I think that is where you and I both agree. I think this is where Prakhar and Dhruv both agree. But I want you, somebody who's led this, or I don't know if led is the right word, but somebody who's sort of become the face of the alternative media against the legacy media in our times. When did this start? What is this about? Why is legacy media failing us? What is really happening?
It basically started as a frustration, I would say. I felt frustrated seeing the news and how it was it wasn't doing its job properly, and I felt like speaking up. And it wasn't something really strong. I just felt like starting, and I started. That's it. It wasn't something big. It started very slowly.
Right. And here's where my action has sort of departed from what you took as action in terms of your frustrations. I was frustrated equally. I was like, how long am I going to spend time synthesizing conversations for people who do not agree? So on one side, there is the argument that Modi's Diya Jalao is just a gimmick. The other side is saying you don't understand the psychological benefits of, ritualizing. And I'm like, okay, both of those things could be true. The psychological aspect could be true, but then there is substantive measures that people as stupid as Trump are doing for their country, that even Arvind Kejriwal has the time to do it on Twitter, that for that matter, so many CMs do. Why does the Prime Minister not have the time to address the country and talk about relative issues? So I felt similarly. And in closed systems, in closed networks, in private conversations, I started synthesizing political conversations, but I've been very afraid, or let's say I've been very risk conscious of going all out on social media about my political involvement, right? For one, my fear is that as soon as I say something and Dhruv's like, Prakhar, you were wrong here, and then I have to defend that point of view, eventually I get married to that point of view. So I may not have started as such a right-wing person. Right? So there's like this forced marriage with an opinion.
That's why this example you gave of the Diya lightning thing, it's something that I feel is where both sides are right. It's not an important issue. It doesn't matter if it's happening or not. So these issues I don't even care about. I don't even like to argue about. I like to
what are the issues?
On something which is something more critical and more important than just that.
Like for instance,
the finance bill of 2017, which basically legalized corruption in India. I think that's something more legit happening, which hid the funding of political parties and allowed for corporate funding to be anonymously given, that money to be directed to political parties. And it poses a much larger danger to the whole country in the present and in the future. And I think if you explain it well to someone, everyone would agree that it's something really bad, no matter if you're a BJP supporter or a Congress supporter. Because all you have to say is that, look, if today BJP is doing this and it's getting the anonymous corporate funding, tomorrow Congress comes in power and it could do the same also. And imagine some foreign funded money getting in there, and then it's messed up then.
Right.
So issues like these, which really matter in my opinion, and where there's a clear right and wrong, those are the issues that I really like to speak about.
Then why is it that, say, people like Abhinandan Sekhri, people like, Arnab Goswami, Ravish Kumar, they are not as actively talking about, like, is there room for a sympathetic interpretation of that law, which is very different from yours? Are you like, really going extremely into the interpretation, or is yours the only interpretation possible? Like, why is it that nobody else is screaming about it?
I think many people screamed about it. It just wasn't heard enough. Also, whenever I raise the issue, I do really look into what the other side is saying. I really go through all their articles, what they've printed, and what the justification they have given is. And then I think myself if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And then I conclude on basis of that.
Right. But you do have a certain idea of the risks involved with doing something so Batman-ish in the political discourse of India. Why is it that you're willing to take on that amount of risk? I'm genuinely curious. I'm sure you've received death threats. I'm sure people have said all kinds
of
things.
Not really. Honestly, to be honest, I haven't received death threats.
I'll give you one. No, but you haven't received death threats.
It's what many people is. No, I mean, of course, the troll comments are there, but who cares about them? They don't feel legit at all. Right. It's not like I received a phone call one day saying that stop doing this and we'll kill you. That didn't happen.
But do you not foresee that happening as you grow?
I think unlike many other people who are trying to do the same thing as me, I'm not trying to be provocative or trying to make someone angry. I'm really trying to understand both sides, and presenting an opinion in the most diplomatic way possible.
Right. And I want to get to the provocation aspect of it, right? I want to get to that part because I, for one, would edge you on to be slightly provocative, but not in a negative sense. I'll come to how I mean that. But when you say you want to put it in most diplomatically, and then you go through this process of reading somebody else's article, so you understand what the other side is saying. You've been on record saying something like, I shoot my shot at experts to go over my analyses and then, give out answers and so on. I'm sure people have doubts about Dhruv Rathee's research methods. They wonder if Dhruv is paid by Aam Aadmi Party. And I'm not caricaturing Dhruv's background. What I'm trying to get at is, how is it that Dhruv ensures, how is it that he can communicate to the people through the means of this medium that, listen, my method of research is as objective as it can be?
No, I don't try to prove that. That's an endless thing. I can never really make sure that I'm 100% correct all the time and my research is 100% foolproof. I just try my best to make it the best.
Now, how do you take on responsibility?
I do apologize, and I have made mistakes in the past. Yeah,
but then
I learned from them, and then I see in the future that, okay, this is what I did wrong here, so next time I should change my methodology in a way so this doesn't happen again.
Right. But given that your videos have millions of views, there is a certain amount of responsibility that comes with it. Say, for instance, an X law is passed in India, and Dhruv's interpretation of that law is asympathetic. He says that, listen, this law is whatever, communal and whatnot. Turns out, in retrospect, and this is a question I asked Abhinandan too, like, most political decisions flower in retrospect. It is never really clear going into them, a lot of them, what will happen, right? Like, is this fair? Because eventually we end up debating morals, and morals and politics have a significant amount of divorce. They're not completely tied together. Right. So now Dhruv says something which is asympathetic to this law. Right. And turns out that law in retrospect turns out to be very, very fair. Now, Dhruv has a certain responsibility for causing an outrage, for causing a dissatisfaction amongst the people who heard his interpretation. How do you go about tying a knot around that problem?
That hasn't happened yet. And the reason I think is because if the interpretation was that open, I would not have doubted it. It's not like it wasn't that open. It was very clear what it was. I mean, you literally, in my videos, I normally let people see the law themselves. It's a one-page law. It's there and they can read it themselves. It's written in English. If you write something, there cannot be like 5 different interpretations. If it's written that this is black, it cannot be white.
No. I mean, in all fairness, law as a profession is a profession of interpretation, right? We take a legal precedent, we take law, a statute, and then we see how it interprets into. And it's not generally just law is like the perfect manifestation of it, but this happens all the time in science and in philosophy. Like interpretation, hermeneutics is an entirely separate field of research. How do you interpret things, right? So it isn't that things speak for themselves and they're as obvious. At least not to me. I get more lost, and I'm sure people who watch me get more lost in trying to decipher in these very hyperactive political times that we live in as to what is right and what is wrong. I put out a few videos talking about how legacy media has betrayed us, and there is almost no clear way of ascertaining what the information matrix is before I go on to decide my conclusion, and people really liked it. So it turns out this is a problem. And this interpretive problem, you seem to resolve with so much ease.
I think it's not there that much. If you let's talk about some specific example, then maybe I can explain you better.
Right. So let's talk about JNU, right? JNU happens.
Let's talk about JNU, yeah.
JNU happens, and Dhruv comes out and says...
The recent attacks that happened in JNU. Is that what...
Yes, right. This was, I think, December, January, sometime around then?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So December, January, something like this happened. Dhruv comes on YouTube. Dhruv's like, listen, I condemn this seriously. The government has misused their police powers, blah, 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 blah. Suddenly, there is a person X who's an influencer on Instagram who does very active right-wing content. He's like, listen, you guys don't know. Here is a video of these guys planning bomb attacks and blah, 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 XYZ, ABC. This is where the interpretation becomes a problem. How do you choose what you're going to believe in? How do you choose what source is accurate? How do you go about diving into this muck of fake news and pseudo facts?
So there was, regarding the JNU attack, there was some footage that came up, right? There was some videos, there was some photos that came up. In those photos, you could see that there were people wearing masks, carrying rods, and they were entering the university and beating someone up. The one thing that you can definitely conclude from that is some goons entered the university. And in another video, you can see that the police is standing outside. So it's a clear-cut conclusion that the police is there, but they still entered the university in a large group and beat people up. And then they left the university and the police did nothing.
Right.
So there's no two ways of interpreting this, I think.
Okay, let me complicate a problem, and I'll start with being more sympathetic to you. Okay. I agree that there is a very large part of the population that desires to put a blind eye to this phenomenon, right? It's obvious. Okay, fact A, fact B. Obviously, the conclusion is that the police did not help it. And to be in all fairness, I think so too. I think there was massive mismanagement. Sure, right? So I'm more sympathetic to your side. However, it gets complicated when I receive a WhatsApp forward from my family group or my XYZ, traditional WhatsApp groups, where I receive an image of the entire JNU thing being preceded by something which was, unfair on JNU students, so
I read through that. Regarding the JNU issue, I read the other side very well, actually. I read their arguments, how they want to justify it. But the whole argument was that before this attack happened, there was something else happening in the computer room server. These leftists going in the computer room server and destroying the server. And that's what the WhatsApp forwards say. So basically they present another incident and somehow say that, oh, look, you didn't speak about that. Right. But that doesn't negate what happened on that day. Some people...
Right. It sort of becomes this race to the bottom. Who started it first? Who started it first? Right. And it's never clear who started it.
In these cases, the interpretation is just like, oh, another incident happened. So what? The incident we are talking about is, we know what happened there. You also agree to that then.
Right. And what I think, again, to be sympathetic to you, what a lot of people don't understand is that both parties could be wrong. So often.
Definitely. Also, actually, in most cases, it's the case that both parties are wrong in some way or other. It's just that one party did some small wrong thing and the other party just justified their big crime based on that small thing.
Right.
Also, that's what happened nowadays. Also, you see these mob lynchings happening and the attacks against minorities, and some people online justified by saying, oh, look, 500 years ago, the Muslims came into our country. They were invaders. That's what they did. Now we are paying them back. That's how they justify it.
Right. Modern politics has no scope, no space for redemption. And I'm with you on that. Right. I think it's a very contrived argument. However,
each issue should be looked on its own.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, very right. I think you've hit the nail on the hammer. I think as soon as somebody loses the ability to sort through instances that happen in the political sphere case by case, they've lost objectivity for me. They're no longer being fair. Now they're Modi part 2 or whatever other left part 2. Like they're just minions. They're just soldiers now. They're no longer people.
Exactly.
Right. I think what is very profoundly obvious on your page that a lot of people don't sort through very easily is that you have a very dismal view, a very uncharitable view of the Indian political scene, right? It's not like you support either party. I think you were significantly, how would I say, impressed maybe is the right word, or you're significantly, you have a significant liking for the way Aam Aadmi Party does some of its stuff, but it's not clear that you are just like, oh, aap bhakt hain.
I volunteered for them in 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell me more about that.
I edited a video for them and I did some graphic designing for them.
Tell me more about it. What happened after?
So nothing really. It's just that after that, it broke up. Just after they won the elections, Yogendra Yadav and Prashant Bhushan, they went out of the party. And also, like, I didn't feel that strongly in its favor. Even though right now, I would say it's the least corrupt party in India. Doing a really good job compared to all the other parties.
Right. I think people deal with Arvind Kejriwal on different standards and Rahul Gandhi or Narendra Modi on different standards. Like Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi have more room to fuck up. Arvind Kejriwal, the slightest, oh, mere ko pata hai isne corruption kiya hai kind of stuff, you know, like this guy, he cannot. He's claimed to be bilkul clean. No, he cannot.
It's like that for everyone. Every time there's someone who claims to be better than others, the standard is always higher for them.
Right. Like PR wise, the best thing he could have done is like, listen, everybody's corrupt. I'm slightly less corrupt. And then he does way less corruption. Everybody's like, Arvind Kejriwal. He could have played it like that.
That's true.
I'm curious. So, I understand, right? I share the same dismal view. If people ask me, who am I going to vote for? I'm like, I really don't think there is a serious way of dealing with that problem. Who would I vote for in the next election would be anybody but BJP, because 10 years are a good enough time to be given to somebody. Now we need to restore the balance of power. That would be my reason. And that reason is sort of is a stupid reason. Like, I wish I had better reasons to vote for someone. I wish, right? So within the tirade of the kind of content you produce, my first question to you is, don't you think it is a better strategy to go after the opposition more than the ruling party, the governing party? See, like the
better
function
strategy for who?
For let's say for fixing the politics of India. See, here's my problem, right? It's because
who should go after the opposition more?
I mean, Abhinandan had a pie chart of the distribution of videos rated by party.
Yeah.
And there is
so I should go after the opposition more because
I think all of us should.
For myself.
No, not for you. I mean, for fixing the political problem. So here is what I think. I think we should criticize Modi. No problem. I'm never holding back. I think we should double criticize the opposition, because the opposition has so blatantly refused to stand up that the ruling party is allowed whatever the hell. So the rhetoric becomes, if not Modi, then who? Rahul Gandhi ko kaun vote karega yaar? And we need a definite change in that direction so that the ruling party is pressured to perform better.
I have another perspective on this specific point. I think that problem has only arisen because currently the media is completely against the opposition. That's why even if they try to raise a voice, we will not hear it.
And you think that is because of their ad model, where companies who are influenced by...
Yeah.
I see. It does not still take away from the fact that it's very hard to binge consume your content, right? There is a particular variety of YouTubers who you can binge consume. You're like, you know what? I'll just watch everything from the beginning to the end. And the reason why it's difficult to binge watch your content, which is a problem I faced yesterday, is that most of it ends on a very depressing note. It's like, listen, you're fucked. Like, this is what's going to happen, right? And I think the problem, or I'd say the obstacle with that And that by no means means that you're doing something which is not favorable. I think you're doing a phenomenal job. But the reason it's depressive is because your conversation ends at #opinion, right? And #opinion is, listen, these are the facts of what is happening. This is my color of story on this, and end of story. There is no discussion about speculation. What do we do from here? How do we pick ourselves up from here? What is going to happen? And then what do we do in response of that? And so I want, at least for this episode, that you and I get into some of the more speculative aspects of things, right? So you did a video on the oil prices. Can you try and simplify what really happened, and why is the world not screaming about oil prices right now?
Because everyone thinks that things will go back to normal in 1 or 2 months.
And what do you think? Will they?
I do think so, more or less. I mean,
absolutely
they will start going towards normal. I wouldn't say like they will become normal suddenly, but the trend will start going towards that.
How do you imagine that happening? Like, how do you imagine the fear that Prakhar has sitting in New York City of walking outside right now disappear?
If you see the US chart for the number of daily active or the currently active cases for coronavirus, it's going down. Or at least the graph is peaking in US. I don't know about US, but for Germany, it's going down right now. Once the graph starts going down, you feel like, okay, now everything is fine. You should not fear it.
Right.
And personally, for me, I don't fear it anyways, because I feel like I've already gotten it, and that's what the test results also showed.
Oh, so the video that you made, it said positive?
Yeah.
यार हद है content बनाने की यार.
And the doctor said I likely got it even before her.
Acha, interesting. I have a fear, and I'm going to admit this publicly. I don't know if I've spoke. So my family's been sick with worry. They call me twice a day. They're like, "How's New York?"
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like New York's pretty fucked up right now. Like New York's not a place where it's right. So
you haven't left your house.
I mean, bro, like for a 24, 25-year-old to stay inside is not something that's like very possible. I equipped myself. I bought an Xbox. I was like, listen, I started streaming chess. Do you play chess at all?
Yeah, I do like to play it. Yeah.
Okay. We'll stream together. I'm going to make sure that happens. So I started streaming chess, and I double down on my content production, and I have I have thousands of books to read, all that jazz. So I'm equipped, but once in a while I'll go out for a walk. Once in a while, I'll go out, get groceries and stuff like that. But early on, when this just broke loose, I had a friend who called me up one day. He's like, I need a place to stay. Colombia just kicked me out, and I need to go home, and my flights or my bus is tomorrow morning. Can I stay at yours? I was like, fine, whatever, stay here. This guy comes in, he's red and he's panting. I'm like, yo, you doing okay? And he tries to conceal the fact that he was in hospital for coronavirus like a week ago. But then eventually I got to him. I was like, tell me what happened. And he tells me it's coronavirus. I'm like, bro, like, what are you doing? Right? Like, go into that room, stay in there, do not leave this room. And I left the house. I went to my girlfriend's. I was like, I'm not going to. Yeah, man. Like, I didn't want to risk it. But
you're still not there.
I was not there. I locked in a room inside my apartment.
Okay.
I was like, don't leave this room. But I think after that, I got it a little bit too. Because I was a little sick, headaches, cough and all that.
Yeah.
Then it passed. So
that's a mild symptom. I think most people are getting mild symptoms.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is the problem, right? Like with this entire phenomena, we are in a place where much less legacy media, even our leaders don't understand what the hell is up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How do we go about tackling this problem? From all the data that you've read, how do we go about tackling this particular problem?
I think I'm not the expert to answer that.
That's why I said #speculate.
It's very hard to say. I think what the governments of the world are doing right now is the right path forward.
It's like waiting game.
Yeah.
And how about the cost to economy?
Happens.
How's about the cost to economy? Like, how's about the 2 crore people who lost jobs in the United States?
Yeah, that's a very, very big price to pay, I think. They cannot keep the lockdowns for that long if they don't have the money to support the people.
Right. And not just the money, but like no fuel to kickstart the engine of economy once, the world's
I heard that at least in the US, they're planning to just print more money and give it to people directly.
Oh my gosh.
And it's some economic theory. It may actually work.
So Americans, the English and the Americans spent the better half of the 20th century coming up with political theory ideas, right? Keynes comes along. Keynes like, listen, we will rechange this entire ISL, all that jazz, right? All that happens. Then the Chicago boys, Milton Friedman and whatnot, and then Paul Krugman and all these guys. Economists are famous people in America. But in 2008, once the economy crashes, America decides the best thing it ever has. Listen, let's just print more money for no good reason and give it to the people. What about bloody inflation?
Did it happen though? It did not happen.
Back then, back in 2008?
Yeah.
I don't remember enough, but I'm just
worried. It barely happened. It doesn't happen because you really need to, I think people don't have the money. If you print more money and give it to them, they'll still use it for the same products and services they would have used it when before the situation got this bad. So I think it might actually be a solution to this.
Interesting. I mean, from my conservative economic thought, I would always say that, you need to trade in some security. You need to give in an asset before you start printing money. The value has to be traded for value. Otherwise, there's too much value in the system, and that has all sorts of weird consequences. Do you, by any chance, follow Naval Ravikant on Twitter?
No.
Have you heard of him?
Not really, actually.
Okay, you're going to like Naval Ravikant. But Naval was saying something along the lines of, countries are going to reopen forcefully when white collar people start losing their jobs.
Yeah.
Have you read up on some data about, white collar people losing their jobs? What is the data you've read on the economy of India and such?
See, the tourism sector, the aviation sector are one of the worst affected ones. After that, it's the movie industry, the entertainment industry. But all the white collar jobs, like the tech jobs and all the other financial related jobs, I don't think they matter at all. You can really work from home in those jobs. So it works, I think, working from home for them.
And do you think this is our new reality, this work from home stuff?
It may be, yeah. We'll have to see.
Right. So it's interesting that you are not much of a speculator. Like, you are a data interpreter then.
Not really, because in the past, things have happened. Like, I said something, and of course, it went the other way. I'm not an astrologer or something, and then people complain, "Oh, but you said this. You said the virus will never go out of China."
Acha. I've seen that.
You saw that, right?
I've seen that somewhere.
The first video I made in the beginning of February, at that point of time, even the WHO wasn't that concerned. So I just repeated what they said.
Right.
And that it's not a big thing for people to worry outside China. Yeah. But of course, things didn't turn out that way.
Right. Acha, interesting. So here's what I'll do. And tell me if this helps.
Yeah.
Let us both take off our coats of responsibility right now. That it does not matter. And I'm going to make sure this disclaimer follows through in all videos that ever come out from this episode.
Yeah.
That there is absolutely no responsibility Prakhar and Dhruv are taking. They are engaging in a creative exercise. And they're trying to see how, because here's the deal. If I was to ever host an event, and if I was to ever have a conversation with somebody about the future, it is not going to be a 40-year-old. I don't want to do that. If I'm 24, I'd do it with somebody who's my age, somebody who's going to be an active part in the construction of my reality when I'm 40. A 40-year-old is going to be bloody 55. He's going to, transcend that. So in that sense, if we engage in a creative exercise, where are the oil prices going? What do they say about the stock market and the economy? And what does the stock market say about the economy?
The stock market and the economy will continue going back up normally as they were before. I think there's not much to say about that.
Really?
In the history, there has been so many recessions and even a very big 10-year long depression period. But as soon as they're over, the economy goes right back up. Yeah.
So I'll ask you this, right? So say, for instance, you're researching coronavirus and its economy and all that. Do you go back and read about the Spanish flu and its economic consequences? Do you go back and read about SARS and what that did to the East Asian economy and such? Right. And then do you, when you're comparing the two circumstances, so SARS versus what's it called? Coronavirus. One of the major differences is information technology.
Yeah.
One of the major differences is social media and news media and all of them ascribing to a clickbait format of things, right? Once the media companies understood that coronavirus was the ultimate clickbait, something changed. And my bet is that what changed is that fear eradication becomes extremely difficult now. My bet about the whole coronavirus thing is that it's not going to go down easily. It's going to be defeated, but the defeating is going to leave a sour taste in our mouths. And we're going to end up still scared and paranoid even after.
Right? I think the media, from what I saw, the media was actually doing a pretty decent job of not doing the fear mongering.
Even in India?
Except, I mean, I'm talking about the international media, not the Indian media, of course.
I don't get why Pakistan's numbers are important for Indian media.
Yeah.
Why is that happening, Dhruv? Why don't you talk about Pakistan more?
I think they need a scapegoat. They need someone to be worse than them just so they can show that they're better than someone.
Yes, it is very weird that part of this nationalistic sentiment that is putting communal horror in the midst of us aims to equate India with the likes of Western Europe, America, and Canada. Look, in 70 years, we found a way to stick our neck out. That we are amongst the big players, even if we're not winning, we made it. We happen to do that.
Yeah.
But as soon as there is a comparison to be made, it is almost never against anybody else. But like, yeah, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka or Nepal ki baat kar. Why Pakistan? There is this...
I'll tell you why, because Bangladesh and Nepal and Sri Lanka are now almost doing better than India in many aspects.
Interesting. How's that?
I think the press freedom index is better in those countries. The democracy index is better. And from what I checked, the human development index is better. The happiness index is better. I mean, of course, there's a bias because of the small population also. But
right.
Bangladesh is one of those countries with a very high population density. And if it starts doing better than India, then of course we have to introspect and see where we went wrong.
Right. I mean, in your analyses of the Indian situation, one might claim that Dhruv has a very, let's say, Eurocentric picture of what is ideal. That Dhruv points out the departure from a normal that is constructed in 20th century Europe and America, right? Like,
yeah, that's true. I do consider like countries like Norway, Sweden, New Zealand to be the peak of development and where every country should look upon to and try to take inspiration. I'm not saying become exactly like them, but take inspiration.
Have you been to any of those?
Yeah, of course.
Which one's your favorite?
All the time, like.
Which one's your favorite?
In
the Scandic.
In the practical sense, like, how do you say it? In a factual and data sense, I would say Norway is the best country in the world. But as a personal preference for me, Iceland is the best country in the world.
Really? So I've been to Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark.
Yeah.
And all of them are such novel places. Like I saw people biking in Denmark. Ministers going into their parliament on cycles. Yeah. And for me, I was like, inko koi terrorist nahi dhoond raha kya? And like, imagine the trauma that we carry with power in India. I was like, you're powerful, you're being targeted, right? And even Norway for that matter, Oslo. Yeah. And what was that one fishing village that we went to in the north, somewhere across the fjords? I'm missing its name. But I remember this was like back in 2014 or something. So 6 years ago, I was 18. And I look at that place and I'm like, this is where I want to die. Like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, bro. Like, who wants to die in New York City? It smells like shit outside. Like, I don't want to die in New York City. I'd either die in India if I want poop to be smelling, right? I die in India.
Many Indians consider New York City to be their dream destination.
Hey, man, it's the world. The world, in part, has a crush on New York City because New York is a city, but an amusement park.
Yeah.
It's an amusement park. Have you been to New York?
Not really, no.
Oh my God. Okay, okay. You're going to come. I'm going to show you around. If you like, I'm sure Germany has an insane party culture. Like that's partly my crush on Germany is to, get around to.
That's what the perception is from the outside.
But in Brooklyn, you can start partying on Thursday evening and not stop till like Monday morning. And in that sense, you can just go from one drinking place to one shopping place to one entertainment sphere to a partying place and just continue doing that. And that's what people like about New York. It's like this charm of lights, this lustrous ability that incites the monkey in us. that gets people to New York.
Yeah.
So what would you say that once you hold Sweden, Norway, Germany, maybe not Germany, but the Scandinavian countries as the pinnacle of human development, isn't there a problem with heterogeneity and homogeneity in that comparison? India is massively heterogeneous. There is just so much happening.
That's a very good question, actually. That's something people say, that those countries became that good just because they had a very heterogeneous, homogeneous population. Most people had a similar culture, similar values, and I'm not really sure how to answer that. It may be the case.
Right. Like, it's very difficult to sort that data out too. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. It's very hard to say. Then again, you have the whole European Union, and they are a part of EU. And just being a part of EU means that you can travel and work in other countries. You can live in other countries. So in a way, you consider Europe as one whole continent, and you can compare it to India, where people can go across different states and work in different states, where different states speak different languages also.
Right.
So in a way, it's not that homogeneous. Italians are very different from Swedish people.
Of course. There was something very interesting that I got into a discussion with somebody in Punjab. So I was interning somewhere in Punjab, and part of my job was to go to all these cultural, educational, blah, 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 like all these public sector sites that they have. And I was in Virasat-e-Khalsa. Have you heard of that?
Not really. No.
Virasat-e-Khalsa is a museum on Sikh history in Anandpur Sahib. So it's this like one of the best museums in India, hands down, bro. There is no claim. There is no, but like I cried in that museum. That's how well the experience is made. And I'm not much of a crier. I was speaking to this gentleman who was walking me around, and I asked him, I was like, so how is the Khalistani sentiment now in Punjab? And he's like, it is pretty non-existent in comparison to what it was 40 years ago. But I was like, I'm sure there are some residual complaints. And he's like, the complaint is that we'd rather have the national government, the central government, give more power to the states, that we get more federal in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good thing, very good idea. And India should start doing that. It's just such a big and such a diverse country that the central government should not deserve to take decisions on many state matters. In a way, it already does that. Some states are given more independence compared to others, like the northeastern states, and in some states you cannot buy land and stuff. Yeah, so overall it would be a really good idea, and I also understand why in the beginning it was not like that, because the country could have disintegrated very easily if the makers of our constitution did make it like that. But I think now we have come far enough that there's enough national integrity that we can start redistributing the powers to state.
One of the other things that holds me back from commenting on Indian politics is the intricate history. Right? Like there is so much that is historically determined, and that it's often so confusing that Savarkar has both people who praise him and people who point out character flaws and how he influenced Gandhi and how Gandhi and Nehru were, all that starts happening. How thorough are you on all of that? How much have you read on the history of Indian politics?
Not that much, I would say, because I don't really... It's interesting to read, but it doesn't have that much of a practical importance. I only read the part where I felt like it was relating to the present.
So I'm sure when people point out flaws in your left-wing argument, because I'd say you're a liberal, right? Like your views are not...
I would also say so.
Right. When they point out flaws in your left-wing argument, I'm sure they come from a place of historical significance, where they're like, listen, with Sabrimala, and you heard my podcast with Ashish, he'll tell you, listen, this is the culture behind it, this is the tradition behind it, and so on. And for me, for one, who champion gender egalitarianism, I'd be like, listen, let the women in. When I hear that, I'm like, I didn't see that. I'm stumped.
He has a good point to make, actually. I would admit to that regarding specifically the Sabrimala issue. Because it's very hard to... I mean, both sides are right in a way. You cannot say where you draw a line between the tradition and making progress.
Right. It's very difficult, you say.
Very difficult to make a line, yeah.
But funnily enough, organically, tradition evolves all the time, right? Like
definitely, all the time, yeah.
And I think I'm very much for free markets and all that, but the free markets have shown that with enough competition, they collapse massively. Right? So if there is enough competition in the free market evolution of Sabrimala's case, it will latch on to the most radical version of itself to maintain its primacy. The example is clearly in the media sector, right? So here is what I think, and you were talking about how media, I think with Ravish or Abhinandan, making media channels 24 hours is such a bad move. And in that moment, I was like, wow, man, like, why had I never thought of this? But I had an alternate explanation. Yeah. Do you remember India TV?
The old India TV.
Yep. Do you remember old India TV, like 2005,
the one
6,
which
7?
Talked about aliens and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So India TV was a news channel.
Yeah.
But India TV figured out very early on that, listen, we can get into this rat race of who gives the most accurate information, or let's tell people about Monkey Man and how aliens abducted something and all of that. They realized that there is an entertainment angle to information provision.
Yeah, I think they were one of the earliest ones to do that. Yeah,
they were the pioneers, and they were the pioneers of something very similar to what even Prakhar and Dhruv are doing, in the sense that there is information to be given. Let's make it a little entertaining, right?
Yeah.
So these guys figured that out. They were like, okay, this is what we'll do. Then social media started pressuring legacy media for attention. People were more happy consuming news on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and then everybody's like, let's just borrow some part of India TV because it seems to work. It seems to get the TRP. Right. So as soon as there was enough pressure in this particular economic demand supply sphere, everybody latched on to the most radical, the theatrics. Matlab, if I'm talking about Pulwama, I have a gun in my hand and I'm dressed as an army commando. Right? And there's 400 news media channels in India serving the vernaculars and the national languages and such. Then there is all this competition from social media. Eventually, everybody realized it's better to sell entertainment. And the busy people of India, the common man, has no time to catch up to the fact that the entire landscape changed when they were asleep. Right? That is what I think terribly went wrong with the legacy media.
Yeah.
They got too busy making money, which is part of their function, but it is entirely at crossroads with their duties right now. Do you remember when Arnav was a good...
I would say in the future, it can change when the people themselves realize it. I think one of the reasons why news became so entertaining and people started latching onto it is because the entertainment part was not providing enough entertainment. It wasn't good in that sense enough to fill the void. And that's why this happened.
Fill the void is interesting because I think Bollywood, which is the pinnacle of entertainment in India, does exactly that. It fills a void.
In a way it does, but there's a big section of entertainment which is still missing in India, I think.
Like what?
I would say it's more in the sense of reality TV shows or something. It hasn't really gone much into it. Most of the entertainment you see are like Saas Bahu serials, which are very, very boring if you think about it.
Are they still running?
I think so.
Kiski mummy dekh rahi hai Saas Bahu bhi? मैंने last Balika Vadhu देखा.
I have to say, like, most of the entertainment channels are not that entertaining.
No.
Even for us, like, we know about that Republic TV entertainment because even we find it entertaining.
Right.
But the actual entertainment, we don't find it entertaining.
Right.
So maybe there's need for a change there also.
Let me give you an example of that. Okay? Yeah. So this author I really prefer listening to, his name's Daniel Dennett. Dennett was talking about his friend who writes books on magic. He writes book on Indian street magic. And very often people will go to his friend and be like, wait, are you writing a book about real magic? And he'll be like, no, I'm writing a book about performable tricks and all that stuff, right? And the fact is, that is real magic. Tricks are real magic. Real magic is not real magic because it's not possible. Right. And it's sort of like this. It's like entertainment is not entertainment. It's a time killer. News is entertainment with some amount of information. And it becomes entirely unclear where I go. I think the Indian space has been, including myself, has been so slow to adapt to YouTube, to adapt to Twitch, to adapt to all these other sources of information. Do you find that to be similarly the case?
That's also true in a way, because most of the people are still stuck on their TV. and whatever is being shown to them, they just see. They just have only option they have is to switch the channels, basically.
Right.
And that really highly reduces the amount of options they have.
What is it that you consume? What's your source of, and I'm not just focused on information, but what's your source of artistic inspiration too?
There's many different sources. I hardly ever stick to one source. Sometimes it's Reddit, sometimes it's some other TV shows, sometimes it's Netflix, movies. It's a big variety.
Have you heard of this fantastic podcast called PGRadio?
Yes. Although I have to say, I'm not really, your podcast was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to. Because I never liked the idea of listening to podcasts that much. It felt like to me that if I'm going to listen to something, then might as well watch the video also. It's more entertaining in that sense. And
absolutely. Yeah, people don't understand. You're not supposed to consume podcasts in a lockdown. You were supposed to consume podcasts when you're walking around. When you're riding
that I really understood. Like when I consumed your podcast, I was having a walk in the nature.
Right. You're like, what do I do with my hands? What do I do with my hands? Yeah. I know. I mean,
but I understood that then. Yeah.
But did you enjoy my podcast?
Definitely. It was very engaging. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I mean, it took me a while to realize I'm a conversationalist enough to, put skin in the game in that sense, where I was like, you know what, let's just try and fly with it, see where it goes. I'm curious because this issue that I'm going to bring up next hasn't brewed to the extent I think it will in the coming weeks and the coming months. But let's try and see what Dhruv has for an early opinion. We will disclaim this again. Dhruv has no creative responsibility of this opinion. I take entire responsibility. So if you want to attack, come to Prakhar because he forced Dhruv to opine on it. What do you think about the whole Arnab Goswami situation?
In what aspect?
So aspect one is the attack. And we can sub-aspect it by saying if it happened or not. But I think for the most part, given, how the response is, it probably did. Yeah. It probably did, right?
Probably did, yeah.
Right. So now that the attack has happened, that is a question mark on the freedom of press, right? Yeah. Here's what I'll say about Arnab as a statement. I used to love Arnab. Back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, he was a fantastic journalist. Some part of me wanted to be like him. He was getting all these powerful people in and he was taking their cases. He was making sure they were answerable. And then he sold out. And I feel so betrayed by him personally. Somebody who I looked up to as the pinnacle of Indian journalism is now a sellout, right? So, but even still, he was attacked for his journalism, for saying something he should not have said. Number one, what do you think about that aspect? Two, what do you think about the entire masala?
Let's go one by one. One by one. What do I think about the attack? Attack is obviously wrong and I do not support it. But I also think he exaggerated the attack part because it seemed like an ink attack to me. And I remember when ink was thrown on other people, like Kejriwal, for example, he's one of the first people to just say drama, ink drama. So he should introspect himself. Right. But then again, obviously, even I do not support ink attacks in any way also. And whoever did that is actually, if it was really Congress workers, they're very foolish because they should realize that it will give him more sympathy.
Right.
Any kind of attack on him.
And that's why exactly I'm doubtful. Like, I hate the idea.
No, but I have to say there's many stupid people who do not think about these things. They're just like, oh, we have to show him, how we are, and then we're going to do this.
Have you met these stupid people? Have you met these stupid people?
I see it often, like on social media, the type of comments I see, I feel like they could be one of those people.
Because for me, I have barely met people who are extremely stupid. Like, I've met stupid people, people who don't think things through, but extremely stupid people have been rare. But in assumptions, in characterization, Dhruv sits across his friend and he's like, this guy I spoke to, Prakhar, extremely stupid. Prakhar's probably stupid. He's not extremely stupid, Like, so I really think people be like, okay, if we attack him, and we are definitely not out there to kill him, we are going to throw ink on his face. That's just going to get him more sympathy. Do you not think that would have, that's why I'm more of the if category. If this attack was not staged or any of that.
Yeah.
People think through stuff like that.
Yeah, they do. But I think the population is so big that there will always be some outliners,
Right.
even if it's 0.01% of the people.
Right. Acha, solid. So it has and what do you think about the critical journalism that Arnab undertakes, even if it's one-sided, where he's like, listen, I'm not going to be afraid of calling Sonia Gandhi with her real name. Like, what do you think about that kind of journalism?
I don't know what to say. It's just a form of entertainment at that point. Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how seriously do you take Arnab?
0.
Come on, give him 1. I said 1 to 10, yeah. Like, let's be reasonable, yeah. I think behind all the screaming, if I sit down long enough to listen to Arnab, I will find something that's kind of useful.
Of course, I think, of course, but I do think he's a normal person and he does it only as a means to earn money or get more popular or something like that. So one of these reasons.
Imagine if you woke up one day and realized that screaming is my superpower. That's how I'm going to make money. So the second aspect of the entire situation is what follows. Because I think this will make into a bigger free speech, free media, coloring it more as if the left is trying to curtail the media and not the right kind of an issue. Do you expect something like that to happen?
Of course, they do it all the time. Like they only know how to twist the arguments. Or there's a huge section of these right-wing people, trolls and IT cell employees. All they do is just twist arguments into just how they can show they're one up all the time.
But my question is, why does Rahul Gandhi not have this resource? Like, for me, I'm like, why is it that only one person has so much power? I'm sure there is a close second. I'm sure Rahul Gandhi or whoever leads Congress now has the ability to form all these IT cells. And
I think there's multiple reasons behind this. One of them is BJP is literally the richest party in India by a long margin. I think, I don't remember the exact data, but it's like they got 2,000 crores of income in 1 year compared to Congress getting 400 crores or something. It's that big of a margin. So if you have more money, you have more machinery power and everything else. Moreover, once you're in power, you do corruption. There's a very big difference, I feel, is there between BJP and Congress. When Congress politicians do corruption, it's for themselves. And when BJP politicians do corruption, it's for the party. The money goes to the party. Because they strongly believe in their ideology. And they feel that, and this is the second reason, I think, that they have a stronger team of workers or fans, I can say, is that their ideology is very strong and it's clear what they exactly want. And they want to get that no matter what.
The Congress has been extremely unclear in articulating what they stand for. The BJP, on the other hand, has been more clear. And there are a few historical reasons. I think I often say this. I was speaking to my mother yesterday. I was like, do you remember when we used to say something like, India mein to aisa hi chalta hai? Where did that line go? Right? Because that was a genuine problem. The UPA was an inactive force of governance. They would do nothing. Like
I think people in general tend to like more decisive. Is decisive the right word?
Yes.
Divisive? Decisive?
Decisive.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the correct word.
Right.
People in general tend to like more decisive leaders.
I think
even if the decision is wrong. And we see that with Modi all the time. He just takes a decision, sticks to it, never apologizes, and people enjoy it. People think they're following someone who knows what he's doing.
I think Manmohan Singh's silence, there was a famous meme back then, Manmohan Singh silent on everything.
Yeah.
I think that really cost us. I mean, and I'll admit to it frankly, 2014, I started off as very pro-Modi. I was like, we need this change. We need a change.
Yeah.
And then as years progressed, I was like, where is that change? Where is that change? Where is that change? And by the time the economy started showing its colors and all these communal, there was a spike in communal tensions. I was like, oh man, like, why can you not make this easy for me? Why can you not be the good guy? right? Now I have to say both of them are bad guys. Like, what do I do from here? Right? But it's not just that they know what they want and they're saying what they, I think there is an emotional component that is involved with all of this. So it's like my parents, your parents, and our grandparents spent 40, 50, 60, 70 years, building this country from nothing, from genuine slavery. These guys built this country up so we could shoot our necks up high and be like, okay, we are a solid power in the world. But the Congress and their elitist garb never allowed us to feel proud about India.
Yeah.
These guys capitalized on that pride that was latently present. And then they mix those colors with communal colors, with cultural colors, traditional colors, and something which was very genuine, authentic, and needed. So self-pride, because we are a very self-shaming people. We are a very self-hating people, right? English mein baat karenge, Hindi mein nahi karenge, like that kind of stuff. It really triggered this self-identity within me. So that I'm proud of the fact that we can do something like that. But the other contaminants that got involved are very stubborn, right? And my question is, what happens? How do we get rid of this flavor that is taken on our people? I don't see this going away. The rhetoric does not just pass. Like Balasaheb Thackeray's legacy is still alive in Mumbai. Yaar. Like nobody just really does anything they want because Balasaheb Thackeray used to live back then. How are we going to get rid of this? What do you think is going to happen?
I think people need to be exposed more to the rest of the world. There's too stuck among themselves and in their own pride and ego. The scope needs to be broadened, just expanding their horizons of what they believe is possible and how the world works and everything.
I follow that. It's going to be very difficult. And I think people like you, hopefully people like myself, hopefully, I'm not nearly as influential as you yet, but people like you and I are going to have a very active role. Alternative media is going to have a very active role in trying to
bring this change. Yeah.
Right. So what do you think? Where does this alt media movement that is relatively very popular in the West, right? There was the intellectual dark web in America and Canada, and there is all this stuff that keeps popping out, even in Europe for that matter. India has none of that, except Dhruv Rathee and Abhinandan Sekhri, who do their alternative media stuff by themselves separately. Where do you think the movement goes from here? Do you see more people popping in?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very open-ended question. It's like asking, where do you see the future of technology going from here?
I mean, that's the whole intent. That's the premise of my podcast is let's speculate on stuff. So that's what I'm asking, right? Like, where do you go from here? Do you do more of this? Do you do less of this?
Yeah, I keep doing more of this. Yeah.
Right. So you're going to get more sharply
more people like me and you.
I mean, carrier. I'd be a little shy of putting us in the same category for too long because I don't deserve that yet. But I totally understand. Have you at least found, say, 3 people who you think are very interesting within this field that, you believe in, that you think have it in them to, cause some sort of a change in the way people think?
Definitely, yeah.
Have you considered leading these people in? Have you considered leading the war against fake news?
In the sense there is no war going on against fake news.
There is a war against coronavirus and there is a war against fake news. Let's not deny that. No, I follow what you mean.
There are people, yes. And I do think more and more people are coming up. Like, for example, alt news, Pratik Sinha. And there's another interesting channel called Soch on YouTube.
I've heard of Lallan Top. Have you heard of Lallan Top?
Yeah, Lallan Top. It's more trying to mix in the traditional media and the alternative media.
All right. What are you looking forward to for the rest of the year?
My own projects, actually.
Yeah.
My videos that I plan to do in different places.
So are you going to mix traveling and?
Yes, definitely. I've been eagerly waiting to travel more, but I don't know when that will be possible.
So, like, how do you plan on mixing this, if I may ask?
You saw the videos, right? There was. You must have seen some videos in Australia.
I saw some where you were sitting on a bench and talking in a park, something like that. I don't think I saw a video from Australia.
Okay, there are some videos. I've already done that a lot. There's one video in Amsterdam where I talked about how the biking there works, how the cycle culture works.
I see.
There's one video in a mini country in Australia. There's a small country which claims itself to be an independent country within Australia.
Tasmania?
No, you probably didn't heard of it. It's called Hutt River.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's almost a micronation sort of thing. And I went there, made a video with the person who made it. It's very interesting. It's something that opens your mind up to the possibilities in the world, because Indians don't know about these things and they don't know what all is possible. It's just to open up your thinking, basically.
I definitely think once you travel and you discover that everything you do could be done in an opposite way and it still works, changes your life forever.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, you can eat with a knife? Like for us, we just lick our elbows and I think it's perfectly fine. But you're suddenly like, oh, you can use paper to wash your ass, like wipe your ass. Changes everything. It
does. In every aspect also.
Right.
Even in the way you think and the way the whole system works and the world works.
All right. Do you have any questions for me?
Not really.
No, none of them?
No, not really. You asked, you already told me a lot about yourself.
Have I overdone it? No, I'm socially very interactive.
I'm more prepared to answer questions than to ask questions.
Right. No, I follow that. I just generally let people, if they have any questions, ask me some. But TK, this has been fantastic, man. I've had a good time picking your mind. Let's see if we can plan a chess stream soon. No. I hope you enjoyed it, yeah. I hope I wasn't.
Definitely. It was a very enlightening discussion.
I really appreciate it.
I haven't had that ever, I think, because most of the times people do interviews, it's not going that deep into the stuff, more not as random. Random is not a bad word here.
Random is not a bad word here. No, I get that. I get that. Yep.
Mostly people focus on the same old things again and again. Why did I start? What am I doing? Etc. Yeah.
Right. I mean, when I was writing the themes that I wanted to discuss with you, I wrote the first theme. I was like, listen, I have so many places to go with you. I hope this is going to be a first of many because I just cannot encompass the length and breadth. So
feel free to do it again. Yeah.
Oh, I will hit you up for sure. I'm not letting you be. In fact, I'm doing one more with Abhinandan sometime next week. And it was because the first conversation, I got so lost with fake news and CAA that I just did not pick his mind up on alternative media or for that matter, like all these other things. So I, at least with him, hope to make it recurring. But let's try one more sometime very soon.
Sure.
Please keep me posted of your health, man. Take care. Tell your friend I said hi.
Okay.
Have a good time.
Thank you.
Bye, bro.
Thanks a lot.